Have you ever just looked at all the green stuff around you and wondered, how does it all fit together? Well, today, we're going to crack open the field guide to one of the most vital and honestly fascinating kingdoms on our planet. Let's dive in.
I mean, really think about that for a second. It's a huge question, right? You've got everything from the tiniest little moss on a rock to the most gigantic redwood tree. The variety is just mind-boggling. So where do you even start to make sense of it all?
Well, you do it the way you'd organize millions of books. You build a library. And honestly, the best way to wrap your head around plant classification is to picture this huge, grand botanical library. And lucky for you, you're getting the exclusive librarian's tour today.
So here's our plan. We'll start with what even gets a plant into our library, then we'll make the first big cut. After that, we'll check out the ancient pamphlets and the more modern books, see how the bestsellers are organized, and finally, we'll take a look at the whole library index.
Okay, first things first. Before we can start sorting anything, we have to know what actually qualifies to be on the shelves. So what exactly is a plant anyway?
So here are the rules of the club. To get into our library, you need to be made of lots of complex cells. And those cells got to have these tough, rigid walls for structure. But the biggest rule, the one that really matters, you have to make your own food. You know, that little thing called photosynthesis? It's what makes a plant a plant.
All right, we know who's allowed in. Now it's time for the first major sort. This is the big one. It's the most fundamental question we can ask, and it splits the entire plant kingdom right down the middle. And the question is just this: does it have seeds? That's it. A simple yes or no question. But that one question divides every single plant on Earth into two massive groups. It's the most important first step in our entire cataloging system. So on one side of the library, we've got the Cryptogams. These are the seedless plants. They reproduce using these tiny little things called spores. In our library, think of them like simple pamphlets or leaflets. They're ancient, they get the job done, but they don't have that tough protective cover of a seed. And on the other side, you have the Phanerogams. These are the plants that came up with the incredible innovation of the seed. I mean, a seed is a total game changer. It's this perfect little package with a baby plant and a packed lunch all in a protective case. These are the bound books of our library, making sure the story inside gets a chance to grow. So let's just put them side by side to make it super clear. You've got your Cryptogams on the left, our pamphlets, no seeds, just spores. And on the right, the Phanerogams, our books, which use seeds. This is it. This is the foundational split for the entire plant kingdom.
Okay, let's wander down the first aisle in our library. We're going to explore the Cryptogams, our fascinating and ancient collection of plant pamphlets.
Now this group isn't just one big messy pile. It's sorted into three main divisions, and each one represents a pretty big step up in complexity. Let's break them down.
We start with the Thallophyta. Just think of algae. These are the most basic plantlets we have. They don't really have separate parts like roots, stems, or leaves, and you'll mostly find them living in water. Now for our next group, botanists came up with this brilliant nickname. They actually borrowed a term from the animal kingdom, and it perfectly captures what makes these plants so unique. These are the bryophytes, and you've definitely seen them. Think of moss. So why the amphibians of the plant kingdom? Well, it's perfect. Just like amphibians, they made the big jump to live on land, but they're still tied to the water. They absolutely need it to reproduce. They're bridging that gap between living in the water and living fully on land.
And finishing up our pamphlet section are the Puritophytes. This is where things start to get a little fancier. Think ferns. They've got real roots, stems, and leaves. They even have tissues inside to move water around. They're way more advanced, but here's the key. They still haven't cracked the code on how to make seeds.
All right, let's leave the pamphlet aisle and cross over to the main collection, the Phanerogams. These are the books of our library, the seed-bearing plants that really took over and now dominate the entire globe.
But, not all books are created equal. On the one hand, we have Gymnosperms. Think of your pine trees. They have naked seeds, usually just sitting on a cone. They're like a sturdy hardcover book, but with no protective dust jacket. On the other hand, you have the Angiosperms, the flowering plants. And their genius move? They tuck their seeds safely inside a fruit, which is kind of like putting your book inside a beautiful protective sleeve. Now for the grand finale. We're zooming in on the Angiosperms. They're the most diverse, the most widespread, and really the most successful group of plants on the entire planet. So how in the world do we sort all of these bestsellers? Well, the way we sort this absolutely enormous group is surprisingly simple. It all comes down to what the seed itself looks like. You just have to ask one question. can you easily split this seed into two neat halves? Those halves are basically the baby plant's first lunchbox. And that one simple question splits all flowering plants into two groups. On the left, you've got the monocots. Think of a kernel of corn or a grain of wheat. It's just one single unit. On the right, you have the dicots, like a bean or the pit of a mango, which you can easily split into two halves. It's a beautifully simple system for sorting such a huge group.
So, we've walked through the whole library, right? From the simplest little pamphlets to the most decorated books. Let's pull it all together and take a look at our library's master index card.
And here it is, the master index for our entire botanical library. This table is your ultimate cheat sheet. Just look at the journey we took. We started with the Cryptogams, our pamphlets, right? We saw them go from simple algae in the water to moss making its way onto land to advanced ferns with stems and leaves. Then we crossed over to the Phanerogams, our books. We split them into the Gymnosperms with their naked seeds, like a Christmas tree, and the Angiosperms, which protect their seeds in a fruit, like a mango. It's just an elegant, logical way to organize millions of years of evolution.
And that brings our little library tour to a close. We've seen this beautiful system that neatly catalogs all the plant life we know. But evolution, well, it never really stops, does it? So it leaves you with a final thought. As plants keep evolving and adapting to a world that's always changing, what new, undiscovered features will botanists of the future use to draw the next branch on this incredible tree of life?